And Davis are putting more pressure on. Archer got himself killed, I think, trying to make a charge. It's not a pleasant attack. I was hoping he was a 2-leader that we could get. Yeah, there he is. That we could get an advantage there. I tried actually a couple of charge attacks. This one ended up bloodlusting the enemy, I think. A little bit of pressure here, though. The artillery was pushed back. That's kind of cool. That's going to be hard to recover because you can't unlimber guns within small arms range. Even if you've got a screen in front of you. That old screening, you know, at 2 hexes, you pull your guns up behind a line and unlimber them, and then boom, and it's all, you open up and you're at 2 hexes for an offensive assault. That does not work in this game. That was a CWB artifact that, I don't know, I thought was kind of neat, but probably was ahistorical as hell. It's a close run thing right here for the Union. If the Confederates end up getting an action, a full action with Davis, I think, is back here, I think they can get their way in, cause a skedaddle of, well, again, the battery. They're not going to be able to push the whole First Corps out of here, but this is one of the key locations, I believe, on the, oh no, it's this roadway they have to get. So they got to kind of strike up this way to succeed in destroying things. And really, the 2nd Division here, or yeah, 2nd Division, I didn't have a lot of opportunity to shift anything over. Let's fall back a little bit with Wadsworth. Just so I don't roll on some capture table or something. The Iron Brigade is not quite in position to defend yet. I was hoping they would get up there. So, yeah. The only thing that helps is I can't just go diving into that railway cut. So if I don't get full movement, I'm not going to be able to get in there. This was a risky operation. The Union's kind of shoved back Archer's stuff. It's you got a disordered unit here. You actually have the first couple of vaporized units. He took the brunt of the damage there. And of course, you know, we'll see a completely different battle if the Confederates can get into that hex. I feel like I screwed up by not covering it, but units that were already engaged, these guys, this guy, they couldn't have moved. This guy fired instead of moving and didn't do much, hoping to kind of break up that command. But yeah, I think I made a big oops there. We got all the Union forces coming on the board, though. All right, a whole pile more coming on too. We'll see if the Confederates get lucky. I think it's about a 50-50 chance that they can bust up that Union position. The Union got away easy. The Confederates got no movement whatsoever here. A little bit of shots fired, trading. I'm beginning to think that this is an impossible task. I can call the attack off because with next turn, maybe with the Iron Brigade beginning to deploy, etc., these two are not going to be able to push their way through, we presume. We'll see what shows up, but I would suspect that's what's going to happen. With all the reinforcements coming up, I'm going to need at least Heth's whole division thrown in, maybe Pender as well, just try to get some movement there. And as we push into 11:30, it's pretty clear that the Confederates are not going to be able to get through there. Punched another unit back, disordered, some shaking, etc. This is a remarkably fluid system, and to tell you the truth, I've been a little cranky about these loss counters being kind of like block with the rotations and everything. So far, they haven't provided any difficulty for me. They've been fairly easy. The only issue that I kind of have with them is, and I thought I'd have a lot, is not being certain whether a unit's wrecked or not. You know, I got to pick up the counter, see below it, see if it's below that half strength. This is, really playing out very simply and very, very easily compared to what I'm used to. Now that for CWB, but that may not still all be all positive for me, right? I enjoy a certain amount of fiddliness, etc., a certain amount of little mechanistic application to help push my game forward, but this does really play a lot more smoothly than one would expect. More smoothly than Terrible Swift Sword by far, and certainly more smoothly than any the regimental sub-series did. That was getting to be kind of a little much for me. I like TSS, I like CWB. This seems to cut a little lower than either of them. Well, significantly lower than either of them in terms of kind of the overhead. But you're still getting a lot of accuracy, maybe more in some ways. As I've always said, make something a little bit more abstract, a little bit simpler, and you'll get more historical accuracy. Well, this is almost a poster child for it, if you do it right. And you know what? Dean's capable of doing things right. We've seen that in the past, and I think the experience he's brought to this has brought a remarkably fluid system. Calls his battle, his orders back for the reconnaissance in force. That pulls his forces back. He's more or less stuck here in some sort of defensive arc there. He's got a little bit of fluid. He can pull back a little bit further if he desires. Maybe try to cover a little bit more terrain here. Heth himself is right here. He can push a little forward, give himself a little bit of defense on that hill up here, I guess. But right now he had to pull back because of the lack of orders. Actually, he's probably going to remain behind the crest of the hill just because the Union has artillery. And the 3rd Corps artillery are not allowed to push their way up without orders. Pender's not allowed to move forward and support without orders. There's no one around to give them orders. Remember, unlike in CWB, I'm not going to have leaders able to roll for initiative and try to reposition their forces or anything like that. Initiative's very restricted in this game. So that's pretty much what we have here. Does the Union want to counterattack? They don't have a real desire to do so. Throwing up a defensive line can work. I noticed one of my regular viewers posted that he's planning on not getting the game because it's too scripted. I just want to reiterate something that I think I did make clear. All that scripting, you don't have to take it. It's not forced. You have the ability to play this game as freely as you do Thunder at the Crossroads or Terrible Swift Sword. You won't get Gettysburg if you do that. You'll get what you're used to in Gettysburg games. So far, I like what I'm seeing here. It's not absolutely manacling my choices, though. I mean, I'm not handcuffed here. For example, I chose not to continue with that assault by Heth because I legitimately decided it is, not foreseeable that I can break through the Union 1st Corps here. So I'd rather relax a little bit, not cause casualties. I'm getting outnumbered very quickly between Davis and Archer. I don't want to get just shredded there. And at the end of the noon turn, or actually the beginning of the noon turn, some more reinforcements coming in there. I don't know what they are. Probably 11th Corps for the Union. And what I know, Rhodes is up there, so that's got to be Early's stuff coming in. Union's forming up a better defensive position here. They don't expect Heth to be attacking at any time soon. He can't until some kind of general to give him orders shows up. More forces coming up to reinforce that 1st Corps. And then we got the 11th Corps beginning to come in over here on the Taneytown Road. The headquarters is all the way up here under its provisional leader, who is what, Sharts? Yeah, it's not bad. He goes up to George, and then kind of settles the command there. At some point very shortly, Howard is going to consider whether or not he wants to launch some sort of counterattack. Historically, I don't believe the Union did so. But I see the current Confederate position as somewhat weak. The problem is, of course, there's a lot of forces there. So I'm going to want to look into what's coming in where. So roads and such, if TSS is correct, are going to be coming in from the north. So I'm going to have to get the 11th Corps to screen them to some extent. In which case, yeah, I don't know about launching an attack with the 1st Corps there. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, these are going to start coming in area B, which is up here. Up around Oak Ridge. And then at 1, yeah, seeing some more roads' units coming in area C, which is up here, able to push down. So I'm going to have to screen that northern end of Gettysburg. And I think I'm going to be expending commands more trying to launch a defensive position linking to the 1st Corps rather than worrying too much about some kind of offensive stance against Hill's Corps, I guess. I certainly can't just push forward with the 1st Corps against everything. They're getting off kind of easy here. That's one of the problems. This is the, kind of the historic, kind of the problem that shows up in most of the games is, you get a little bit of a line, you let the Cav defend here, and then you fall back to around Cemetery. Although I have seen the 1st defending along Seminary Ridge and Terrible Swift Sword as well. It wouldn't have been my choice. I was actually playing an opposed game. Big group effort where I was actually switching sides between the Union and Confederates. There was something kind of nice to be said about trying to throw a defensive line up here, in the sense that you aren't risking the important locations early in the battle. Limited amount of fighting that the 1st Corps has done. The positioning with the 231 marching up this way. This is reserves coming in. The numerical advantage that I have over Archer and Davis, I'm going to try to take West's McPherson's Ridge. I'm not going to go any further than that. But basically, there's no artillery here. I think I can push them off that and gain a little bit more ground. Might actually see this battle developing with the Union not so much trying to defend as long at Cemetery Hill as they historically did. I've seen this happen in my TSS games. When I tried to hold Seminary, I also tried to hold the other side of Gettysburg over here to prevent things from falling right back to that good terrain. Get myself set up in that good terrain now. In TSS and I think Thunder, if I recall correctly, there was a decent amount of territory that you could entrench yourself into. This is far more limited. First of all, I only have this many breastworks. Secondly, I can't place them where there's no woods, which means Cemetery Hill is not going to become a fortress. You'll see it over here on the Grove, I think, and maybe down here, but Culp's Hill will become hellish. But Cemetery Hill itself is a little bit more accessible to the Confederates. So the idea of doing a forward defense and kind of falling back, making them pay for the ground near Gettysburg, is appealing to me. Sometimes people just throw themselves onto the hills, but if I can push forward here, I think I can delay the main force of the Confederate Army, let the 11th Corps take up its positions hanging out there on the right flank of Gettysburg. That's my goal. So, I'm going to write orders. All right, I'm not going to write them down at this moment. I'm going to figure out what the application is. I don't want to have you watch me trying to write with my left hand or trying to hold the camera in my left hand while I write. So what I've got here is Howard stacked with Doubleday. So we're close. That means we're within command radius. That's gonna add 1. It says distance between headquarters, if any. Well, I don't know. I think there's an automatic. I guess I should look that up. This is my first time. I'm going to take it offline. I know a lot of people don't like me paging through the rule books. Sometimes you catch some feel of the rule books that way. Some of my frustrations, at least. But I don't think that's a big issue here. Okay, so I don't really have to worry about the order delivery time at this moment, but the rules are not clear. This between headquarters, if any, the way it's written is, let's see, orders take time to deliver based on the distance. In the case of an Army commander, the Army commander's awareness to determine how long the order delivery distances are using command radius measure distance from headquarters to headquarters. It doesn't really say one way or another. I think there's always going to be that one turn delay, even if they're close to each other. So the first thing I have to do is see if Howard can cope, if he can come up with orders. And then how aware he is, which is normal, is going to add to the arrival the delay time before Doubleday gets the order. So right now, if I succeed, the order will be within command radius is 1, normal is 2. It'll take me an hour for Doubleday to possibly get ready. And that makes sense to me. I mean, no matter what, no matter how quickly the order's delivered, Doubleday's got to get his command organized for this attack. Okay, so I'm going to be rolling to try to get a 10 or more. Howard's command rating is a 2. Have another side. Some of these guys have dual sides. It's really sad to see poor Hill here with a 0-0. Not his finest battle, though. Okay, so I have a +2 for the leader. I'm not going from a move army or from a move order to deploy, and I'm not in reserve. So I succeed, and now I get to write my order, and it's going to take, like I said, an hour before Doubleday can start checking on this same table to see if the order's actually implemented. I'm going to sketch out the order fairly simply. It's going to be an attack to take West McPherson's Ridge. The main focus is going to be along Cashtown, but I do want to do an outflanking operation, probably with the 231. It's, you know, going to be up with its command by that point. But I'm going to... I don't have to assign those additional orders until Doubleday writes out his orders. I will leave some little spaces for each of the separate commands. They have to, each division has to have its own orders, essentially, to handle this. Let me take a quick look at the orders that I wrote out. I just, very, very simple, but the arrival time that I got to start checking, it's an attack order. Take McPherson's Ridge, take West McPherson's Ridge to Oak Ridge line. Or Oak Hill line, I should have written down. I know what I mean. I mean down here to John Forney's house. Outflanking the rebel right. I want to try to make an outflanking maneuver here. And then I specified the 3 different divisions. Now I could go and give brigades their own little orders, etc. if I wished, but I think I'm going to give each division its own specified orders. I may throw one in reserve because that gives me some useful aspects. I'll see. I got to look up to see how big a reserve I need. But anyhow, that all comes into the implementation of the order. Yeah, at the point when Doubleday's ready to start announcing it, he writes those down. At least that's how I interpret it. Certainly I could write it all out ahead of time, but I like the flexibility of allowing the sub-commander to break his own, to break down his own division of labor based on the subunits at the point when he's ready to actually issue his orders. And then they have their own delay where they have to accept these because it's an attack order. All right, well now we're going to start moving some things, and there really isn't much going on. For the Confederates, we had Hill showing up, and we had some artillery joining the little park back here that nobody's using. This forward position might collapse right away, in the sense that the Confederates, if they're attacked there, they want to hold it if the Union can't come up with an attack. But if they're attacked there, they do not have sufficient defenses. Whereas back here, they can throw all their artillery on the line, and they've got a strong line. Ooh, something I wanted to point out. Scales over here, or yeah, Scales. I accidentally moved him forward. Well, you know, sometimes shit happens, and you just cope with it. So I turned around and I'm marching him back to take a position on Hare Ridge. It's not going to have an effect here. Sometimes something like that will have an effect. And hey, I broke the rules. Terrible, you know? So what? Right? I mean, seriously. I'll try to fix them. And that's what I'm doing here, and it's not a big deal at all. There is one thing I can do with Hill, initiative-wise. I could try to get some artillery up there. So I'm going to take a shot at that. Needs a 10 or more. I took a shot with Howard at trying to give the 11th Corps orders. I was unable to come up to get a success there. But given that failure, there's not a hell of a lot I can do with the Confederates. They're pretty much stuck in position. The only thing that I could conceivably do is declare a skedaddle here, which I don't feel is warranted, and I really ought to get rid of this shaken marker. I think it was there a turn too long when it mattered, and it sure the hell shouldn't still be there. Alright, so, well, I'll move to the Union side of the turn. I've got to flip that little counter over there, but I'm going to make a roll to see if I get orders to the 11th Corps again here. And that's not going to do it. I get +2 for Howard's command rating. That puts me up to a 9, not quite enough. So we're going to just see the 11th Corps continue to push into position. I really do want to get them someplace. When I wasn't used to Gettysburg, say the first time I played TSS, I shot them up here over to Oak Ridge to help this assault over there, and then I got shocked all to hell when forces started coming in to my north. Okay, so here we are at, what, 12:45? After the Confederates, we got Rhodes beginning to move on with Iverson. I don't know which. Speaking of which, I was corrected. Keep calling him Heth because there's how it's spelled to me. Apparently it's pronounced Heath. Well, I can butcher my French language pretty well, so why not my good old American names too? Alright, so we're essentially at the point where the Union command comes into place, and the time has happened. I wonder if, sometimes I don't point the camera at what I'm doing. I wonder if the time has come about. Well, the time has come about, but let us see whether or not good old Doubleday is ready. He's a 2, so that gives him a +2 to the leadership value. We don't go combining the two commands. He will eventually undertake this order unless it gets overridden. There's no distorted orders like there were in CWB. So now all I'm doing is rolling for an 8 or more because I need a 10 in the base roll. And I sure the hell don't get it there, so I'll just be moving things forward into position. And eventually Howard may decide to, you know, countermand that order if Doubleday doesn't undertake it in any reasonable amount of time. I also scratched out some orders here for the 11th Corps. Howard got the right to give orders. I'm going to actually throw him forward to talk to Doubleday after he does that. I'm not sure I want to launch this attack anymore. We're beginning to see troops here, and we've got reports of more troops, lots more, coming in. What do we got here? Rhodes, Jones's artillery beginning to come in. All more of Early's stuff. I got some real worries there. I'm going to try to put the 11th Corps running here along the York Pike, because I don't see any Confederate troops coming in on the Hanover Road in the near future. What I'd like to do is fall back to a position maybe where I can hold Benner's Hill. That, not being able to hold that can cause situations much like the historical, where Culp's is coming under significant pressure. Cemetery up here in the north is coming under significant pressure. And I want to try to avoid that. I feel like putting a screen up here can buy me some more time. Eventually, I may have to give it up. There are a lot of Confederate troops. And of course, maybe I'm, doing crappy here as the Union, right? I wouldn't put it past myself in general of having bad plans. And that's pretty much the movement there. I did want to kind of jump to something offhand. I noticed, maybe for the first time, the sort of haters of me, whatever they are. There's been kind of this consistent 2 thumbs down on anything for the past maybe 2 months or so. Somebody's been, or a couple of people have been kind of subscribing to me to put thumbs down, and it's kind of pointless. It damages my ability to assess if I'm doing something particularly wrong. Now, if I'm collecting them, just in general, I have to discount them. But now a third one seems to have joined, and they actually have gotten faster at reacting to my videos than, of course, I mean, an hour-long video, people have to, if they're going to watch it and decide, hey, is this worthy of a thumb up on YouTube? And a lot of them aren't going to watch via YouTube. They're going to watch via something else, where maybe there's no possibility of giving a negative reaction that matters to anyone, I guess. I have no idea that these matter to anyone anyway. It's not like, I understand the number of thumbs on my, the thumbs down on my anti-board game geek rant. The whole forum issue there. Some people may have been afraid that I won't be posting at all anymore, and some are just pissed off about my existence and want to express that. But with these, it's a little sillier, I mean, you're not really, what, you want to silence me everywhere? Is that what the deal is? That's what it really seems like. It's like, oh, I can't cry to you about I can't cry that you exist to the moderators at YouTube. Yeah. Most of the internet, most of the interwebs, it ain't like BGG. There isn't going to be mommy there to protect you from the bad man who might say something you don't like, or might say something you think you don't like. If you could understand it, maybe things would be different about, you or a game or something. But that's okay. Oh well. Like I said, in the overall realm of things, it seems pretty pointless. But then again, it's pretty pointless to be doing these videos too. I take my enjoyment out of that. Maybe these people take their enjoyment out of hitting a little thumb down. Maybe it makes them spooge or something. I don't know. Okay, so we got Lee on the map. He is not so sure as his status over here, which means all his orders are going to come with like a 4-turn delay. It's going to take an extra hour to get everything into any kind of commander. He's not going to be making a rapid assessment of the situation, as well as a player with this bird's eye view of the whole map can. He's got to make his way up here before he starts doing things. I'm going to want to get Hill moving probably up to the West McPherson line very quickly. Now, over here, Rhodes has gotten to his station. I may also wish to send him some orders to provide some support on Hill. I can actually do some conditionals in the game. One thing you can't do in this particular series, I don't know if I went over this, but it used to be one of my favorite things was, people had clocks at 2:30, launch an attack on this. That gave me a lot of time. Granted, there were optional rules for foot dragging that only allowed, I think, an hour of rolls to receive a command like that. But basically it gave a little bit of padding so that an order would be undertaken when you expected it to. Well, you can't do that now. You can trigger things off of time after an event. You can trigger things on the event itself. You could say, when Hill attacks, launch your own attack. You could also say, wait 2 hours after Hill attacks to do this. and that would be acceptable. You can trigger off of events like daybreak, nightfall, I guess, although you probably wouldn't be launching an attack at night based on nightfall. Yeah, I'm not even sure about the delay on an event, how much that's allowed. I seem to remember that being allowed. Oh, geez. I'm not seeing it quickly. And here we go. Allowed conditions when another command, some time period after another command attacks. Yeah. So you're allowed to use clocks for that, but you're not allowed to just declare I'm going to launch an overall offensive at 2 p.m. Which may be historically accurate. I do not know. What I do know is that really hampers what I was used to doing. I got a lot of success out of that. Not so much in the Civil War stuff as in the Napoleonic Brigade series, Austerlitz. I was able to, make this massive combined Allied assault that just had my opponent looking and saying, you must be cheating. There's so many rules against this. Well, there wasn't a rule like this against it, and I was able to manage, giving out a lot of orders that, even with the foot dragging, more or less came about so that I was able to do a dawn attack. I guess I could probably still slate that, since what I did was wrote an attack at dawn order, basically. Anyway, with the Union, even though I moved Howard into place here to give orders, he wasn't able to wake up enough to the situation to try to throw away those attack orders, and they end up succeeding. Doubleday's going to implement them. It takes one turn, 15 minutes, to get those orders down to his various commands, and they will then have to make command rolls to take them. What I didn't do was expressly give orders to the artillery commands, and I think I have to do that as well. Unfortunately, I don't have much room here, so I may kind of fudge on that a little bit. I kind of know what I want to do with the artillery. Not exactly what you should do with a game like this, but there's only so much, I've already covered up the next line there. And again, not optimal, but whatever. What I'm planning on doing is sending the 1st Division, and I've assigned 1 unit in reserve in each case. That's sufficient to protect the entire division, because they're just divisions of 2 brigades each. If it's larger than 2 brigades, I believe I have to throw a whole brigade into reserve. And I'm basically sending the 2nd Division around Herbst Woods to try to launch an attack from behind. The 3rd Division straight this way, and the 1st Division cutting this way. And we're going to see how that works out. Lee's got a chance to react. Maybe he wants to pull back. Maybe he wants to throw more troops in and see if he can get a full defensive line there. Right now, Hill's orders do not allow anything back here to cross that Hare's Ridge. So it'd be kind of risky to leave Heath in place for so long. Now we see more and more of Rhodes' troops coming on the board. In particular, this force over here is supposed to form up behind that creek or stream or whatever. It's not even it's just a run. It doesn't count for anything except as a feature to give orders by. It's too small. A trickle. That's kind of interesting, because one of the things I was considering when I was being perhaps too aggressive with my Union was, hey, I could go position myself up here at Blockers Knoll. Some nice ground here, commands the approach to Gettysburg from the north. The danger to that is not just the fact that those guys will get there first, but also that there's troops that are going to be coming down the York Pike, and that would collapse my position. So this is always kind of a weird thing. I'm never sure how much awareness I should have of the opposing order of battle coming on. In this particular case, I think it's reasonable to understand that there are Confederates out there. The question then becomes, well, if I know that, do I know that the Hanover Road coming down that way over here is safe? You know, I gave orders which essentially are to run down the York Road, and I always feel kind of uncomfortable about that. We do have one this unit has a particularly interesting set of orders. Let's take a look at what they are. This is this is going to be the Dole Roads, SS Roads Skirmisher Battalion 10. Deploy between Rock Creek and Oak Ridge. Move no further south than Blocker's Run, that's that little run, including the branch that runs blah, 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 until Rhodes obtains new orders. At that point, the brigade and the sharpshooters are considered to be part of Early's division and stay that way until Early's attack ends, at which point they must rejoin Rhodes. So I'm assuming Early's going to come in with attack orders, or else I really need to look up, because I know Lee's got an initial orders situation, just like Lee cannot issue orders until the turn after Ewell successfully makes his command roll. So Ewell's got to come on the board. That's 2.1E. Ewell gets a free bonus order, basically. Well, he's not going to get to do that until he shows up. I don't have him on here, do I? I don't think so. Yeah, I got Ewell here. So at this point, you know, now that Ewell's on the board, he just came on this turn, we'll be able to try to assign orders to his corps. And then maybe I can get Hill moving as well. As things stand right now, I cannot get Hill moving. I don't know why Lee's over here. He's not supposed to be. He's supposed to be in this hex. I was deploying the artillery just in case things go badly. Alright, so now we're on to the Union, and there's a chance everything could hit the fan right now. Okay, so here we are with the beginning of the Union, what, 1:15 turn it looks like over there. And I've got these orders to assess. I gotta find each leader. So this is the 1-1 here. Let's see. Who's in charge there? That'll be not Meredith. Let's see. Wadsworth. Wadsworth's got a +2, so I'm going to check him, see if he accepts his orders. Again, there's, yeah, he's going to do his. So what I do, the main orders are accepted. I don't really have to mark this because it's an attack order, so each individual component is important. So I'm going to put that there. The 2-1 is Robinson down here. He's good. +3. He's likely to accept these. I've already calculated all the timing delay in there. You don't have to worry about the Army Commander's awareness for this level of things. +3, that's not going to quite get him down there. And now our third is Rowley, and he's not good at all. And he's kind of the hinge-pin of the whole thing. Linchpin? Okay, so all we got is the Iron Brigade moving, and they're going to have a kind of swing over. So in some ways, maybe that's okay. We'll see what they're up to now. What do we have with the 11th Corps? We've got orders that aren't yet applicable. They're going to be checked at 1:30. I don't get to check them yet. Clarify because I misspoke. It's not just the Iron Brigade that gets to move. The whole 1st Division gets to move, which means the 2-1-1 as well, which is going to kind of shift away and leave a hole in the line here. One thing that I noted is I was in artillery range, good artillery range of these musket men here. And unlike the old CWB style line of sight, where this would be behind the crest of the hill, that's kind of notional, that doesn't apply here. So I can see up this hill to this, which is really kind of on the downslope. Not sure what the difference in the levels of the hill is. I'd have to look in the scale for this sucker. I don't know if they give it. You'd think they would. I'm sure they do. Game scale hexes are 110D. Give the contour intervals 20 feet. A 20-foot contour has plenty of room for these guys to be hidden behind a hill that, you know, is cresting up here. And I would say that probably couldn't have been seen by any reasonable means, but well, it's a game, and you know. But what's kind of neat there is I didn't fire. I could have fired earlier. I didn't notice it. But by taking the fire now, I took it at the most opportune point, and I managed to reduce the losses a little bit. Pretty soon this gun's going to be screened, and I'm not going to be able to do anything with it. His orders were really to, with the core artillery, to move forward after the infantry takes their location. You can't use artillery effectively in an offensive fashion in this, unlike CWB. No screening your guns, pulling them up into place, and then kind of fading back into them. Okay, after attempting to trigger an action by Baldy, Ewell over here, he wasn't able to get his orders off. He basically can set off some orders to Rhodes. That detaches all of this automatically. I wanted to launch an attack on the Union First Corps, take some of the pressure off of Archer and Davis. They're both dead, wounded now, actually. Davis took his wound too, and the leaders become better. You can see the Union attack beginning to form up, though. Forces swinging around over here, heading for Forney's Ridge. This is where their orders are for the 1st Division. 2nd Division swinging around this way. You'll notice they've got enough distance to cover that they had to, in my estimation, convert into a column formation, move out to here, form up again for an attack, and then launch in. That's how I read the rules, but they're kind of loose about it. If it was just a repositioning within the line or whatever, it would clearly be okay. But this kind of doing a counter march like this, as far as I'm concerned, it looks like you're supposed to convert into column. And that actually costs you movement points. You don't gain anything terribly much for being in column, if I'm correct. Maybe I've been a little too loose, not paying attention here. Inclined ground costs a little more in line. But normal terrain costs about the same. Woods cost you more in line, and there's a little bit of woods to cut through here. One little woods hex. Sorry, that's woods hex sides, not woods hexes. Woods hexes don't matter. So largely I would say they're going to expend a couple movement points to convert into column and then move into place, then convert out of column, those 2 extra movement points. But that's what I think the rules actually imply that you're supposed to do. We also got the 11th Corps beginning their movement, and I know I'm going to regret both these moves. The attack here, and then this moving into York, and I'm actually beginning to toy with the idea, just because I'm that kind of bold person, that Howard's going to think about giving further orders to Schurz to swing the 11th Corps around to smack into Oak Hill. These kind of things are not a good idea, but I have trouble preventing myself from considering an attack when I'm sitting in a situation where I feel like I have severe numerical advantage, which I already do, I think, with the 1st Corps against these, probably even against what's up there, but I'd like to take some of the pressure off the 1st Corps' attack. If I can gain this territory up here, what does that mean? I don't know, because when it comes down to it, it's going to be the fight down there. But hey, what the hell? The game's not that scripted, as you can see. You're loose to do a lot of things. It's just there's a few actions in this first day that cause you some issues. But by pushing forward, I'm delaying Lee's ability to maybe overcome some of his first day disadvantages. If I had this line here on East McPherson's, the problem is that one good solid punch could push me over there before the 4:15, and that changes some of the flavor of the battle. I get the night orders and stuff like that. So I feel like trying to gain this extra ground is a value, and then, well, as a corollary, I feel like maybe the 11th Corps should be attacking too, even though I know there's stuff over here somewhere on that side that I'm putting my army at risk with. We'll see. Confederates begin to deploy Brock along here, and I've got got Pettigrew over here. He may have to swing into place. I think I'll move him a little bit just to refuse the flank a little bit against this outflanking attack that seems to be developing. How much right I have to do that is hard to tell. Like I said, if I was playing with the defensive orders, the way the defensive boxes work in this game, I would feel completely constrained to continue facing this way no matter what happened, and that feels like bullshit, right? You know, but the question is, I shouldn't be able to stretch out a line down here out of nowhere. Although, to some extent, I kind of stretched out a line here out of nowhere. So, I guess I'm going to just play without too much emphasis, or without any emphasis on those defensive orders, or on the axis of attacks, because I just don't feel comfortable enough with the game to be able to start deciding, you know, to what level I feel that is accurate or not anymore at this point. And that's okay. You know, obviously they're optional rules, so I shouldn't be doing them. Got some Confederate artillery shooting out over here. I looked at the reinforcement schedule, and it doesn't look like anything's coming down York Pike today. So I'm not too unhappy trying to make a roll with Howard for that. But before I do that, something I think I forgot last turn. The Union's got to worry about fluke stoppage for their divisions. Two of my divisions are operating. This one, I'm not sure. He may be still susceptible to it. Let me make a check and see what's going on here. So the base is if the leader's wounded or killed. The command has the reserve. That's going to be +2 in both cases. I'm going to need a 6 or more. So let's go for the 1st division. And they're fine, and the 2nd, yeah, they're fine too. I'm not sure if their reserve is in place yet because it's still moving. Basically, the way you reflect what a reserve is you keep it in column when everything else is deployed. That's kind of cool because it means that if the reserve somehow gets hit before it's released, it's vulnerable to attack, an unexpected attack, as it were. And it also gives you kind of a notational way of reminding you what unit is in reserve. All right, well, let's take our roll, see if Howard gets his orders or makes his mind up about orders. He won't have them yet. And he does not, so we'll continue with what the 11th Corps is up to there, and Howard may trail along with them. Or he may go back and look over what's happening with the 1st Corps, who knows. And hitting the 2:30 turn, or 2 o'clock turn, sorry. You can see the Union beginning to deploy here. This is about the edge of what I can do here, because I'm exactly the range that I can be from the headquarters. Now I can push the headquarters forward a little bit, and that'll help. But there's not a lot of play here. You can see I'm spreading out. I've got the 3rd Division coming in. They're kind of shielded by the crest of this hill. I was able to get some artillery fire that probably was available all along from back here. Plinked another unit. You can see we got some Confederate. These aren't permanent losses. Come midnight they can regain a quarter of their strength, but they're never going to be in healthy shape. See the 11th Corps moving into place. Got a bunch of Confederates coming in this next hour. Those are all going to be over here in Section D, which, you know, it kind of draws into question whether I want the 11th Corps to attack, because if they attack, it's going to be an axis heading that way, as opposed to driving towards Oak Ridge. And it's really not going to help the 1st Corps' position. The only thing that helps the 1st Corps right now is Ewell sitting on his ass. I did want to look up one thing about how they discuss, or if they discuss, in that defensive positioning rule, whether or not. So they say no more than one brigade of the command can change from the general orientation, so that allows you to refuse a flank fairly cut. And then they say without the command's leader getting an initiative. That's beginning to make sense to me. So I'm going to be able to stretch out Pettigrew to defend there. That's one brigade. That's safe. And then beyond that, if I wanted to change my orientation completely, I could do that with an initiative order. I'm willing to accept that along with the axis of attack, that I can shift the axis of attack based on an initiative order. Those kind of things feel appropriate to me. Here the axis of attack was defined in the initial order, that there was going to be an outflank to this direction. So, you know, I'm perfectly fine following the orders there. The only thing I should have done was already refused that flank last turn. Oops. Oh well. Errors, you know, tactical deployment errors, big strategic errors, etc. Historically, the commanders made so many errors at Gettysburg and many other battles. It's one of the reasons I kind of don't like playing a heavily scripted game, is I'm liable to make those errors anyway. You can see, hey, shit, man, I'm not falling back, and I don't know that I would have. I like playing out, you know, something without. I don't really need the scripting to necessarily play out something that's kind of interesting and weird. I don't tend to fall to some pattern of this is how the battle is going to be fought, because it's either historical or because it's particularly clever, or you know, some kind of opening book to a game. I've followed this kind of pattern before. In fact, I think this is probably pretty close to what most of my TSS games were, where the Union did throw forces up on the ridge. It's Thunder where I tended to play a more defensive game. I felt like it didn't reward this more advanced position by the Union quite as much. This has rules that help the Confederates if they can kind of push through. But I don't feel like they're really determining my Union decision. Certainly not the decision to attack here. If anything, I'm risking my position by pushing forward. But I see a numerical superiority, and I want to do a lot of damage. All right, as we pull into, what, 2:15, I think we are. The Union line's beginning to really slam into the Confederates from multiple angles. I'm learning, got some cleanup to do here. Somebody pointed out that maybe I've been forgetting to place them, and yeah, it may be the case. There may be cases where I've not placed them where they could have had an effect. But you can see part of the Confederate line has been pushed back. Actually, we had the cowardly legs have an effect that time. The Union is doing quite well here in terms of pushing with the First Corps. The danger, of course, is there's this unknown threat sitting, well, largely known right now, in terms of Ewell having a fairly large force under Rhodes, that he could just slam in there and maybe cause some pain. But right now, I'm willing to take that because I so overwhelm this Heath command. Still got the ridge here. Nobody tried to cross that. I was thinking about trying. I think I probably should. Well, it's too late. I would have had to make closing rolls to see if I could make it across. But basically, I've taken to the feeling there's always sort of a comfort range in these games. And for me, it's 2 hexes, which is frankly what it usually is in CWB as well. Just the combat table in this case, the opening fire volley is not that good at 2 hexes. It's only a 1/3 chance as opposed to 50-50 at 1 hex, whereas I'm only getting a shift against me on the combat table, so if I've got a decent sized unit, I can get a good first fire in without likely losing much. But on the other hand, on the 1 table, you only lose 1 unit. I mean, it's balanced. It's just my personal comfort zone is that 2 hex range. And that's pretty much what we're seeing here. One thing was noted was this out of ammo marker here. That's only shell or shot. I still have canister if need be to help form up a defensive line. So I might want to throw that into a location. The problem is canister only works out to what, range 3, so it's a little weaker than regular rifle fire would be. But it's better than muskets, and some of the rebel units are armed with that. Over here, I've kind of given up on the 11th taking an offensive action. I'm just pushing my way up the York Pike and ready to position myself. These guys are going to be going into reserve on Cemetery Hill. That'll be kind of nice. Maybe I'll be able to get some digging in. That's always one of the reasons I like throwing troops out in front, is to give me some time to set up the entrenchments that I'm going to dig. I'm not sure the reserves can't do that, or can actually. Either way, but yeah, the Confederates didn't get anything. Ewell didn't come in. We succeeded on all the fluke stoppage checks, so nothing too exciting happened here. Just more casualties. You know, there's a certain press of fire that just occurs. Crap. Some of the open order units, this was pointed out to me on YouTube, should have withdrawn from fire. Basically, anytime they're allowed to make an opening volley, they should withdraw from their position. And then no fire actually happens. So I took a few more casualties on them than I should have. Since casualties don't mean anything in the game and Buford's Cav got withdrawn, I guess it probably is a negative for the Confederates in this case. They probably took more casualties than they should have by sticking around, by the Cav sticking around a little harder than they should have. It still wasn't the usual situation I've seen in Gettysburg games where the Union Cav with their carbines just eviscerates the advancing forces. You know, the opening volley table is no better than for them than it is for anything else. Okay, let's open up talking a little about what the Confederates did. Not a whole hell of a lot over here, just formed up their line a little better, exchanged some fire. Ewell is still not coming in, but over there, that's Early coming in. And he's got orders to take Gettysburg. I wasn't quite expecting that. I know the fight happened historically up here, now that I remember a little better. But, and the 11th Corps should be defending, extending off of the 1st Corps there, instead of marching up York. The problem with this is Gettysburg's not really a good target. If you get Gettysburg and you're sitting in it, what the hell is that going to do for you? I'm kind of letting my thinking go here from games where I had a little bit more freedom. I wasn't expecting that the Confederates were coming in with attack orders for Gettysburg. Actually, I expected that they were coming on without attack orders, and that attacking Gettysburg wouldn't be a terribly useful goal. Marching through Gettysburg to get Cemetery Hill would be a hell of a good goal, and that was my one worry of leaving it open. But I felt that the idea of trying to move through Gettysburg is so unpleasant if there's any Union force over here, from my experience in other games, that I wouldn't be seeing that kind of order. Well, I don't know that I am, you know, as the Union player, I'm going to just keep setting up along the pike. But they're just going to come marching down this road towards there, and chances are the Union's going to have to try to make some kind of reaction. Now, this is not a game where you can just roll for initiative to attack, unlike the CWB series. You don't get those kind of immediate goals. My orders are fairly clear. I can't just, you know, switch my defensive location. I've left this huge gap. About the only thing I can do is release the Army Reserve once it gets into place, but that might take some time as well, and give it specific orders to maybe defend the Gettysburg salient. I'm not sure, maybe to the south of it, but this could be really problematic for both sides, really, because if the Confederates march through Gettysburg and end up behind the Union lines, that's not a terribly good position, and they actually have orders to occupy Gettysburg, not go on further, which would... Anyway, leaving that alone, for the Union, the 3rd Division of the 1st Corps failed and got its fluke stoppage. Now, that is kind of a screwy situation because there are no counters to really represent stopped units that I know of. It's kind of a pity because these cowardly legs are double printed. There would have been room to put something. I don't have a headquarters to mark as skedaddled. I believe that's the net effect of this, is that I have to do a forced skedaddle on a fluke stoppage. No matter what, I can't continue with the attack until I get an attack continuation order, which is going to screw with the Union attack because it's the flanks that are attacking only. The center's going to be pulling back here. That will be annoying. Let me see. Unfortunately, there's no index here, but here we go. Each turn, every division. And there's a 2-level roll here on this that had to be accompanied. The first one is the immediate check to see if there is a possibility. And then you check against the command value of the leader. Well, the command value of this leader was a 0, which made it fairly likely, 7 or less, that he was going to stop. Now, what is our effect of this? The division must successfully The division must successfully conduct attack recovery before it can resume its attack. The units of a stop division must move to the rear. Okay, so I don't think they actually have a full skedaddle in effect, but they still can't. They can't press the attack, and they're going to have to pull back a little bit, and that's not pleasant, to tell you the truth. And I've got to put some kind of marker. I'll probably use maybe the cowardly legs on top of the commander or something like that to help remind me. Okay, and you can see where the Union center kind of fell back from this attack. We're still fairly well connected. It's, you know, not a disaster here. If all 3 divisions end up in fluke stoppage at the same time, the whole command just stops the attack. That's the way you lose corps attacks in this system. The other interesting situation is the deployment along here. We've got, this is the Army Reserve. Howard has gone over to go talk to Shirts. They don't have to be too close. Again, in this system, you can kind of assume if they're within riding distance of each other, they can have a chat, I guess. His plan is probably to see what he can do and try to react with this. So if that march is down through Gettysburg, he's going to have to fling up the 1 division in the way there. In fact, he may actually just want to position that division under special divisional orders to run up in front of Gettysburg and try to defend that. And then we could try to swing this in as a hammer and anvil type situation. We'll see. I mean, we got the weaker force, so that's not going to be pleasant. With these guys, they've got an axis of advance along, I don't know what the road is anymore. It's covered. Is this the Baltimore? No. Harrisburg. Okay. Into Gettysburg. But what's not described is the different columns. And once they hit what I'm going to view as the taking off point, which again wasn't specified in the attacks, it may not make much sense. I may have to make an initiative roll to make that. I don't know, because they're just under attack orders. You know, it's a really. I think I'm going to just play it by ear, as if I had written the orders with they'll come out of column when they face someone. But normally when you do that, when you're not expecting forces, enemy forces, if they're not part of your order, essentially, if you don't have a deploy order, you have to make an initiative check to do so. And this feels a little fuzzy just because someone else wrote the orders, essentially. Anyway, if there is no opposition, it's going to be kind of weird. Now, what is really going to be odd is if columns meet in Gettysburg because they can't fight, and if they deploy, they're disordered. It's a terrible idea to have the possibility of fighting happening in Gettysburg under this system. You know what? This video has gone long enough. I'm going to load it up. It seems like a good point to stop. We're at the 2:15 turn.